Hi guys, welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Today on the podcast, we have Aid Murray. He's also known as the Sober Clean Poet on Instagram. He's got an amazing page, and I started following him about October last year. He's just coming up for 500 days this Sunday, so when you're listening to this today on Monday, he'll be 501 days sober. So, please send your congrats to him. An amazing guy, amazing story. I did see a lot of similarities from kind of our kind of upbringing and early start in life as well, and then just the kind of drinking to oblivion part of it as well. I'm so glad that he had his moment of clarity nearly 500 days ago and has got sober. But yeah, just I want to say enjoy this podcast, this episode, but it is tough to enjoy these. But I hope people take something from it. There is obviously talk of drink, alcohol, drug misuse, substance misuse. So take care when listening to it, and just sit back and enjoy. Aid, welcome to After Hours with me, Jimmy Thistle. How are you today, man?
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Not too bad at all.
And I'm not making it up as I go along. I am making it up as I go along, but it's a new podcast, so I kind of want it to be your kind of platform. So talk about whatever. Obviously, I've got some questions and things, but we want to really drill down onto the issues you had and all that. So are you in Brighton?
No, Bristol.
Bristol. Sorry, I knew it started with a B. I should be referring to my notes there.
Not far off. Yeah.
So did you grow up in Bristol?
No, I didn't know. I'm from Scotland. You'll notice as the more we talk, you'll probably notice my accent gets a bit stronger as we go. But
I did think when you came on there, I thought I hear a little twang there. But yeah. So tell us about your kind of childhood and when you had your first drink, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So I'm from Perthshire, in and around Perthshire in Scotland. That's kind of where I grew up. We moved around quite a lot as kids. But yeah, grew up in a couple of villages in and around Perth in Scotland. I guess where the drinking started, I think we were in Stirling. I think we moved to Stirling when I was about which is central Scotland, obviously, not too far from Perth. I think we moved there when I was probably about 8 or 9. I think that's when my parents split up. And I think I used to do quite a lot of fishing, me and a mate. And I think I remember taking it was probably about 10 at this stage, maybe 10 or 11. I remember there being some whiskey in the house. There was never much booze in the house when I was growing up. My parents weren't really drinkers at all. But I remember there being some whiskey lying around. For some reason, I poured some into a flask and kind of took it with me for the day. And I remember having a sip of that and remember thinking that was disgusting. And that's probably never going to touch that again. And I didn't for years after that. It was probably we moved abroad then when I was probably about 13, 14, I think.
Okay. Whereabouts too?
I was in Istanbul for a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, which was pretty mental. I didn't go to school for a year, which I think at that age you can kind of get away with it. So I had some home tutoring and stuff,
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
And then we moved to the north of Cyprus, the Turkish half of Cyprus. So I was there for a couple of years as well, which was fantastic. Great place to grow up, It was, school kind of finished at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We lived by the beach and spent a lot of time in the sea. Doing a lot of fishing, a lot of spear fishing, a lot of diving and stuff. So
it's quite interesting, Aid. My mum was born in Perth.
Right. Okay.
My dad was born in Stirling.
Right.
And my parents split up when I was 6. And when I was about 12, we moved to just outside Athens in Greece. So quite kind of similar, upbringings there. Yeah. So carry on. I was just kind of getting the similarities there.
Nah, it's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it? Yeah. Do you speak any Greek?
Ligo.
What does that mean? None. Well, a little bit.
Little, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I'm the same with Turkish. I used to be fairly fluent. I still remember bits and pieces, enough to order a kebab and swear. I swear like a trooper in Turkish.
I think the swearing was pretty good for me. The weird thing is, I did it at school, obviously there, and I really didn't learn much at all. But then the following year, when I went back and stayed for the entire summer with my friend who was Greek, and it was
yeah,
basically stayed in his apartment with his gran, and his gran didn't speak a word of English, and I learned pretty much, much more than I'd learned at school when I was just in the situation where, you
yeah,
had to kind of learn it. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was kind of forced on us because, well, basically most of my friends were either Aussie Turks or London Turks. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it was a good time there. But yeah, so the first time I remember getting proper drunk was I think I was left in charge of. There's a couple of mates I had who I think were the younger. I think they were the year below me. I think so. I wasn't really babysitting as such, but I was seen as a responsible one. Anyway, I was round at one of their houses,
And this is still abroad, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, this was in Cyprus. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have been about 14, I think, and we got involved with the booze cabinet that was there. And I think I remember pouring a pint of various spirits and kind of basically downing it, and then kind of blacked out at that stage. Woke up on their roof. There was a kind of flat roof, like they had a terrace on the roof. I got woken up there in a pool of vomit. I think that was the first drinking to excess experience that I remember.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was probably 2 or 3 other instances out there, and didn't really bother about it too much. Came back to Scotland age 16 because the school out there wasn't that great. It was deemed probably fairly important. I came back and did the hires and stuff and got a bit more a better education. So.
And what year would this have been? How old are you, Ed?
I'm 50, so that would have been 1990. That was
1990. Yeah. So you're just 5 years older than me. So yeah, about same kind of era, Yeah.
So yeah, back to Perth at 16, and then just fairly typical Scottish rural kind of hanging out with mates, smoking a lot of weed, or hash it was at the time.
Hash, solid,
yeah, solid, microdots, and all the rest of it for a couple of years. And then I'm quite tall, and I was like 6'4" when I was 16, so I'd always looked older. So it literally be a case of get off the bus, take the school tie off, and straight into this bar, and I could buy booze. I wasn't one of these people who had to go and ask other people to buy it. People would actually get me to buy it for them. So.
Yeah.
And I would quite often fund my drinking, and that was it wasn't every weekend, but it was a weekend thing. That's what we did down the park with a couple of bottles of Mary Down or whatever it was.
Mary Down, Mad Dog 2020, all of that.
Yeah.
Stuff. There wasn't really, there wasn't the kind of, devices and things like that, and I'm still on the fence about whether they're good for the kids. I don't think they are. I think there's too much of it too soon, too early. But for us, it was like, what are we going to do at the weekends? Because you're in that kind of in between age where you're not a kid, but you're not an adult, and you want to be an adult. So if you can get hands on booze, then what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can't really hang about in the pubs at that point, although we did sometimes. But you're just out in the park, and it's like, we'll just get pissed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did venture the pub now and again. Well, we got more like 17 at this point.
Yeah.
School, 6 year at school. I did all right at 5th year, so I kind of got all the grades that I needed to. So 6 year was just a bit of a doss. Really, I didn't really do much. Just hung around, smoked a lot of weed, dope again. But, and wasn't really drinking that much at that point, really. The drinking didn't really take off until I moved through Edinburgh when I was about would have been 19, I think. I did a year of college doing sound engineering, like recording bands and stuff in Perth. Moved through Edinburgh, got a job at the company in Edinburgh on the installation side of the business, which is what I'm still working now, project managing. And it's the entertainment industry. It's like technical infrastructure for theatres and concert halls and that sort of stuff.
Oh, wow, right, okay.
But back then it was on the tools, and it's a contracting life, so it was 50-50 between workshop work and then you'd be out on site, and you're out on site with kind of hardened electricians who are big drinkers, and that's kind of how you lived. So it was a work hard, kind of play hard industry, really, doing a lot of unsociable hours because it's theatres and concert halls. You kind of got to work around performance and stuff like that,
and I guess you've got to keep up with the kind of peers in your peer group.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I found that could quite easily.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where it all started, really. And that kind of followed me throughout for 30 odd years, in the same sort of career, in and out of different companies. And I've always I went to university in Edinburgh as well. I dropped out of that company and went to university for 3 years in Edinburgh as well.
How
But
was
that was
university? Was that a bit boozy as well?
very busy. Yeah, yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very
So
boozy,
just
very druggy. Yeah,
yeah, not so druggy, more boozy then.
yeah.
There was a druggy period after university, really. But yeah, university was, looking back, I probably did the wrong course. I did the right course for the industry I'm working in, but I wasn't really that engaged. And then, but I was drunk all the time. You know? It's a wonder I even came out with a degree, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I did college in Aberdeen for a couple of years, and I think I dropped out of that and ended up working in a bar just because, yeah, I mean, looking back, it was the boozing. I mean, I was like, well, I wasn't really enjoying the course. I don't think it was the right one for me. Um, but yeah, it was just easier to go down to the student union and hang
Yeah,
out with people, you know.
yeah,
It was too much in your face, and that was what you were encouraged to do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe me. That's I cottoned on to who were the kind of drinkers on the court as well within the first couple of weeks of being there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's kind of how it progressed for the next 3 years. Really, it's just missing a lot of lectures. It's a wonder how I actually got through it, but managed to somehow.
Hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, that was all pretty messy, but just consistent, And it's I think one thing, well, it's a kind of flip side of it, really. One thing that kind of, if you like, kind of increased the longevity of my drinking, meant I could probably drink because I've been sober now for it's coming up for 500 days actually. It'll
Cool.
be
Yeah.
the
Well
weekend.
done, man. Well done. That's
Yeah, it's quite an achievement, really. But I
yeah.
think one of the reasons why I was able to kind of keep drinking that much because I never really drank spirits. Uh,
Right.
I would if there was nothing else left, obviously.
Yeah.
But my go-to was always beer, and it was always cider, and therefore, I think because of that, I never lost a job because of my drinking, which is
Hmm.
quite a wonder, really. Some pretty bad things happened towards the end of it, which I'll come to a bit later. But
And were
yeah,
you drinking like just your kind of strongbow, or what else was it, like dry blackthorn? So it's a lower percent, because I know you can get these old rosies and all that kind of crazy cider, like the scrumpy.
no, it would be more the kind of session lagers and it's
Yeah,
like if you like the kind of 4.5% type stuff.
yeah,
Although that did change towards the later days, but then it was more about um, yeah, well, yeah, it was a lot of it was a kind of habit of actually drinking and of smoking as well, and the two kind of went hand in hand. Smoking cigarettes and drinking pints. That was the what I was brought up on. That's what we did. We went to the pub after work,
absolutely.
and that relieved the stress from the day, and that's what you did, and that's what it all kind of started really.
And you could
And
smoke in pubs then, so it was like,
yeah,
even if there was no one about, I just used to go and prop myself up at the bar and talk to the old barflies, with
yeah,
fag in
yeah,
hand and beer on the bar. That was the kind of standard. That
yeah,
it was, yeah.
exactly same, yeah, yeah. And in Edinburgh, it kind of really does enable your drink as well. Especially there's a lot of pubs in Edinburgh. I don't know if it's still the case, but back then there's a lot of boozers that opened at 5 in the morning.
Well,
And
that was the same in Aberdeen, because we had a lot of. I mean, I'm from Glasgow, but I moved to Aberdeen when I was about 17,
yeah,
and we had. I think there was the Criterion and the Schooner. They were both open really early doors. I think from 5 or 6, because you had all the rig workers coming in, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
had a lot of the fishermen coming in.
yeah,
So they were just there for them, and it was like
mm,
we were down there watching the big breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning when we were
yeah,
students. And it
yeah.
was, I would never. I think at that point, it wasn't that I was dependent for drinking in the morning. It wasn't. It was just a kind of, it was for shits and giggles. Do you know what I
It
mean?
was a novelty, wasn't it?
The
Yeah, yeah,
novelty, absolutely. So, yeah.
yeah. And also, we found, we used to be quite into the clubbing as well during the sort of mid 90s, and we'd
Mm.
find, it'd be a good. Well, all you had to do was kill an hour between like 4 and 5, which you could easily do just wandering around the streets, and then you're straight into a boozer afterwards. Spend a good
For
three or
the,
four
for the,
hours in
for
there,
the,
sort of
for the come
coming
down
down.
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. So a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed the tune on your story today was that slam positive education.
That's a
We used to
classic.
do we used to go through the slam a few times through Glasgow at the Arches. It was
That was like our staple.
yeah,
And then obviously you had the slam tent at the Tea in the Parks as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And slam were just, those lads were amazing, but it's still amazing.
yeah.
Not really
Still
heard
going.
too much from them these days. I think they had an album out last year, or the year before, maybe. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I still do listen to a bit of techno, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I've been to a techno club for a long time. But
Nah, nah,
yeah,
same.
the Arches were amazing. Yeah, slam night.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so did you? Like, how were your relationships with your family, and are you married at all, or did you?
No, I'm not. No, no. That's one of the. No, I've never really been. I mean, I have had lots of relationships, some very long ones. I say lots of them. No, not the right way to put it. It's not lots. It's, I've had relationships. Some of them have been long, but I think I was never really I knew pretty early on I had a drinking problem. I knew when probably early to mid-20s that there was something. I drank differently from everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think I knew there was a problem there. And as a consequence, I never really hid my drinking. Like I was somebody who stashed drink, but I would hide how much. I wasn't truthful about how much I was drinking, put it that way. And I think as a consequence, going into relationships, I would never really be 100% honest,
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost as if I was actively seeking out relationships where the partner might have, she might have her own issues that I was able to then concentrate rather than looking on, rather than turning the mirror on myself, if you like, or looking in the mirror, and analysing things myself really, and what probably needed to happen there. So I think, that was kind of a, it's always been a stumbling block, put it that way, because at that point, you're not communicating properly,
and I guess if you're feeling like you're not being fully honest with yourself and with other people, it's easier to just get into a relationship that you don't know if there's going to be a long-term future there. It's just kind of
exactly
something to kind of do, and it doesn't matter if it kind of ends early or whatever. So I totally get where you're coming from with that one, and it is difficult. I mean, I don't know if you were the same, but the thing with me was I think I went to my first AA meeting when I was in my 20s, and one of the guys there said to me, like, I'd lost my license through drink driving, and my folks at the time were like, you need to do something about this. So I went to a meeting, and one of the guys said to me, like at the break, he said, I don't think you've got a problem. He said, you don't have that 1,000 yard stare that people come in here. I was like 22, 23, do you know what I mean? And it was like, so I walked out of that meeting at the end of it, and I was like, I don't have a problem. Told my parents I didn't have a problem. And it was like, carry on regardless, But I think also for me, even when I was getting through my late 20s and 30s and knew that there was definitely an issue there, I didn't think it was a problem because my life was all right. And to me, it was a bit rock and roll. I didn't realize the dangers of it, though. I didn't actually know how much damage it was potentially doing to me at this point because there's no warnings anywhere. You have to really dig around the internet to find that. And I thought, oh yeah, you know what? If I drink for my entire life, maybe I make it to like 60 or 70, and then that'll be it for me. But that was it. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't really concerned at that age. But now that I know, what is it like? There's 7 types of cancers that alcohol consumption can cause. It affects every single organ in the body, whereas smoking only really affects a few of the organs, whereas alcohol is like, it's worse in a kind of scheme of things. So it's Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, you're right. I think you kind of, to turn a blind eye to it back then. Anyway, I knew it was doing me harm, but didn't have a clue. Like, wasn't as genned up as I am now. Put it that way.
But it's like a silent harm. It's almost like because we don't. Okay, we might feel like shit the next day, but especially when we're younger, we're not feeling that. I didn't really get affected by hangovers really until later, and it was withdrawal.
Yeah.
So you kind of just go, well, it's not killing me right now, so whatever. I'll maybe have a night off, and then I'll be all right at next weekend.
Yeah. You're right.
So when did it really start kind of like taking control of you, if it did, or did it?
I'd say probably towards late 20s. I reckon was when I about the same time I probably realised that I've got a bit of an issue here, and that my drinking is different from everyone else's, because I'd always take it way too far, and I'd disappear. I'd be in relationships and I'd disappear for weekends, just on a complete bender. I'd disappear on like a Friday night and then come back, tail between my legs on Sunday afternoon. Just really reckless behaviour, really. So I kind of knew then, and that's when I probably went to my first AA meeting. I think in late 20s, probably. And I've been hundreds and hundreds of AA meetings over the years. They never really worked for me, which I'll come to in a bit. So I chose a different path to trying to help get me sober. But yeah, that's. I think at that point, I don't know where we got up to on the timeline. Was I in Bristol at this stage?
Well, you're just in kind of late 20s, early 30s, I think, when drinking started becoming you recognised it as an issue,
Yeah, that's when I moved to Bristol. I was in a relationship with a girl then. Her stepdad was an alcoholic, so she kind of recognised the signs. I think she knew. I think she kind of dropped the dropped the question.
Put it to
Some not too subtle hints that might be something else going on.
And were you hiding booze, or were you just coming absolutely wrecked and not really hiding at all? Or what were kind of
No, see, I was more often than not, I'd be working away during the week, so I'd be able to hide how much I was drinking. Then.
Of course.
So she wouldn't really know. So I'd get my fix during the week, but then the weekend she'd want to hang out. We were young, so we were out partying and stuff as well, which is suited me fine as well. But there's at the weekends when she'd be going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd still be up at 5, 6 or whatever. And this would happen just pretty much all the time, So the signs were there, and that's kind of how it really progressed. And I saw it as, again, it's almost like I stayed in the career, I stayed in the role I had because I got that week release, where I could go away from Monday to, wasn't every week, but Monday to Thursday.
No, but it suited you. It suited your kind of. It means that end for drinking, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So yeah, that's just kind of how things really progressed. That relationship didn't work out. And at that point, I think I took a decision. I think a company had an office out in Dubai. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I think what they term in the AA is a geographical. Right, I'll run away from my problems.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that word there, geographical. Yeah.
So I decided to run off to Playboy Central. Yeah, fantastic idea. It's the Middle East and continue the party out there for what turned out to be 4.5 years, which I don't really know how I managed to stick it because I don't even like the place that much. But
and what's Dubai like? Because I mean, I was talking to a customer today. They stopped off in Dubai coming back from Thailand, and it was for me, it's not any place I've kind of really dreamed about going to, because it seems a bit fake. Like and is it not really expensive to drink as well over there?
It is, yeah. But I mean, you get paid a lot.
You're getting paid a lot, yeah.
Out there anyway, and it's tax-free earnings obviously as well. So you've got enough money to drink.
Absolutely.
And they do cater to the Western crowd that are there. So there's tons of bars and hotels and stuff, and brunches.
And what do the police? What are they like when people are stumbling out of bars and making their back?
Tend not to. You got to be a bit careful. I mean, you don't. There's no stumbling around the streets. Basically, if you're in the state, you get straight into a taxi and you get yourself home.
Yeah.
Kind of how it works. But it's a weird place. Right? It's all a bit fake, and it's all money. There's not a lot of culture there. It's
no.
Yeah. I'm surprised I stuck it for so long, but I ended up just playing a lot of golf, which I'd never really played much of before, and I haven't really since, to be honest with you. But I got pretty good at golf. I got my handicap down to I think it was about 13 at its lowest or something. So playing a lot, and that kind of kept me sane. There's a big AA scene in Dubai as well. It's huge. There's a big community out there. So I went to quite a lot of meetings there. I think the longest I lasted was like 3 months, though, I think, in any AA stint.
The AA seems to be, the world over. Wherever you can go, you can find a meeting, and but I think it works for a lot of people. AA didn't work for me, but NA did. NA was my kind of saving grace, and that really worked. But I think it's all about the group that you find as well. Because I know people that they've got a meeting up in Glasgow, and he says it's just full of dry drunks. He said just people there. They're also trying to sell you stuff and this, that, and that. It's just a minefield. And I was like, wow, because I was really lucky with the one that I had over here with the NA. There was only about 5 of us when I started, and now it's up to about, I don't know, about 20 odd people. So
Right. Yeah. Is that a lot of youngsters now as well?
Yeah, mostly youngsters. Whereas I think the AA over here was a little bit of the older variety.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously it's in a church with the AA, so it's a wee bit kind of like cold in the winter and all that. So I only stuck that out for I think about 3 or 4 meetings, but then I just, because at that point I was trying to do 90 and 90. So I was doing a meeting every day. And if there wasn't any physical meetings, I was doing Zoom, because this was during kind of COVID lockdowns as well. But I just didn't really get on with AA at all. I mean, I get all the 12 steps, and I've done my 12 steps, but mine was just more geared for, because the thing is, like with AA, if you've got a drug problem, they don't want to see you, but NA, Like, I mean, I'd done a lot of drugs, but drugs was never really the thing that got the hold of me. It was the alcohol. But because alcohol's a drug as well, any welcome me with open arms. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it just really had more of a kind of my kind of vibe to it as well.
yeah.
So what happened after Dubai? So was that 3 months you did in Dubai with AA or?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah. Stuck at it for a while. Had a sponsor. Started working the steps, and
Hmm.
then I think I just got bored of it. I didn't think it was really. I think all the times I've gone to AA, and I think the reason why it never really worked for me, it wasn't going deep enough for me. I needed. I think AA plus probably some therapy on the side might have been, a
Yeah,
solution. I
yeah.
think I always knew that, and I didn't. I always kind of felt a bit out of place. I never really felt like I truly belonged, and I could used to be in the groups I was in, but I didn't really engage with the program. I didn't, do everything that was kind of being suggested I did, but I didn't really
Hmm.
want to either. At the same time, I just didn't feel like this was my route out.
Yeah.
Um,
And you might not have been ready at that point to
well, yeah,
fully
no,
commit, you
that's
know.
the other thing. Yeah, I don't think my drinking career was, was quite finished then.
Hmm.
And I hated the idea of getting to a stage where I'm going to hit a rock bottom. I thought, no, I'm better than that. I don't have to let it get that bad. But it was almost like that was kind of inevitable for me. It's almost I felt like that was almost destined. I wasn't just gonna because of the nature of my drinking, because of how kind of random it was. Some days I would have control of it. Some days I could go out and have a couple of pints.
Yeah.
The next day, when I came, I mean, there were times in Bristol where, like I said, I go out on a Friday and I find myself in a crack den on a Sunday afternoon, having not
Hmm.
slept at all. And I've got, so I'm kind of moment of clarity on Sunday afternoon, but, I've got work in the morning, and just get myself into these ridiculous situations, just so reckless.
And probably a silly question, but were you doing crack in the crack
Yeah,
then?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So when did that kind of start?
That was, I mean, it only really happened probably over, I could probably count on one hand the number of instances, number of weekends that happened. And I
Yeah.
think that was when there was a lot of emotional turmoil. I think another big sort of messy breakup had happened. I think it was when I was just really, really struggling. Where I had to turn to, basically anything that was available. Just got in with just complete randoms, you meet
Yeah.
in the street.
And it's
Um,
a kind of self-destructive. I mean, I've never done crack, but
mm,
I think what you were saying about the kind of inevitability of being a rock bottom, it was the same with me because it was like I'd maybe give up for a couple of weeks, and this was latterly towards the end when I was just drinking solidly, like from morning till night. I'd go out, pretend to be going to work, and then sit in the car around the corner and just day
yeah,
drink until my partner at the time came home, and then I'd some days I'd keep it on an even keel, but then other days
yeah,
I'd be coming in the house and I'd maybe say I wasn't feeling well and go to bed for an hour, but I just needed to sleep it off. But I think that I was constantly trying to push the limit, not like on purpose, but it was just this
mm,
inbuilt thing. It was like, and I'd maybe have 2 weeks off and I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, you look a lot better. You're not so grey. And,
yeah,
then I would just get straight back on it. And it would just, every single time, it would just get worse and worse and worse. And it was just a total self-destructive path. And I wasn't,
yeah, yeah,
obviously wasn't happy at that point, but, yeah, it was like, I almost needed to just kind of push it to the breaking point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah. The happiness was I was never happy. I mean, that was really the crux of the problem. I just wasn't happy with being in this perpetual state of either drunk or hungover. Kind of
Mm.
the real inconsistency in mind. Some people refer to it as cognitive dissonance, don't they? There's a real difference between your actions and the kind of beliefs and your values.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm just in that kind of perpetual state, and that's kind of just constantly beating yourself up, constantly full of shame, guilt, and all the rest of it. So yeah.
But
Um,
it's a hamster wheel of hell because we drink because we think that that's the solution to make us feel better, but actually it's the thing that's affecting our mental health that's making us depressed, and it's just this
yeah, yeah.
constant hamster wheel of hell. Yeah.
It is, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how it continued. Came back to Bristol probably when was it 2019, just in time for COVID.
Hmm.
I was freelance at that point, so I didn't have any work for the best part of a year. I'd only just turned freelance, I'd become a sole trader, and you needed to have, I think, a couple of years under your belt to claim any of the grants. I think so.
Right. So you
Basically,
weren't furloughed or anything? No. Yeah.
wasn't furloughed or anything, so destroyed all my savings. And it didn't really. I was living with my brother at the time, and things didn't really get too bad at that point. I think because there wasn't really an option to go out and
Well,
misbehave.
you had to do that whole, queuing at the supermarkets, and it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I actually was in a rehab detox facility for the first part of like literally 2 days after I went in, lockdown started. So I didn't
yeah.
have to deal with any of that until I came out, and then I relapsed. But was there any limits on the amount of booze that you could buy? I mean, I just think I don't think there was, but it was like, what are you going to come out with like? 4 bags full of vodka or something, and then it just I think it just made it a bit more difficult to get the supply of booze that you maybe needed. I don't know. Were you a home drinker, or was it mostly just the pubs and bars?
No, but anywhere really.
Yeah, just
Anyway,
anything
but
and
yeah,
anywhere. Yeah.
but I had like a newsagent, well, an off license right next door to my house at this point where I lived in Bristol. But I was
Right.
living with my brother, so that kind of kept me accountable, I think. So I wasn't getting bent out of shape too much. It was actually all right at that point.
Was he a drinker at all, or?
No, 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 he hardly touches anything.
Right. So I suppose you weren't like kind of, yeah, oh, like, right, like, what are we going to do today? And it was a beautiful summer, wasn't it? So it was just,
yeah,
and I suppose that did help hold you accountable because he wasn't a drinker
yeah,
really at all. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't be bad. So made it through all that, and then I think I had little sporadic bits of work out in the Middle East and stuff just to kind of tide me over, and then it all kind of I got offered a full-time job back in Bristol. And
Hmm.
then probably the worst, well I don't know, was it probably one of the worst decisions I made. But anyway, moving to just outside of Bristol,
Hmm.
I was kind of limited by what was available property-wise at the time. So I moved just outside of Bristol and then just kind of proceeded to isolate for about 2 years, basically. Um, Managed to keep the job down, but I was drinking most days of the week at that point,
Hmm.
and
And
it
was the
just
job was the job wasn't really 9 to 5, was it? Was it more
it varies, Some days,
days?
yeah, it's kind of 50-50 mix between site work or kind of homework, and I can kind of,
So you could kind of suit yourself to what,
yeah,
so
yeah,
if you were feeling like shit the next day and didn't have to start until 10, then it was, yeah, yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or I could be working from home and drinking at that point as well, which did happen.
Yeah.
Not to any great extent, luckily, but
No, but enough to kind of make you feel, alive again. I
yeah,
call it my when it got really bad for me, I used to call it like drinking myself sober.
yeah,
Because I'd wake up in the morning, and I guess at that point it was withdrawal. So I'd kind of drink the vodka until I could actually physically do function. You know what I mean? Like at this point, I was just at home. I wasn't working, and they knew that, and they'd go to work and school, and then I would just go up to the shop, get some vodka, and then at least down like half the bottle until I could actually have a shower, make something to eat. You know what I mean? And I felt fine. Like clearly from the outset, I was probably definitely boozy. I wouldn't say I was stumbling or
yeah,
falling
yeah,
over because my tolerance was high, but
yeah,
I needed that in me to actually function. And it was
yeah,
like, but by that point I was like, yeah, I know there's a problem here, and there's nothing really I didn't know that there was anything I could do about it at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got to that stage basically. I think the last couple of weeks of my drinking, I was drinking most days, and I was waking up in the morning and cracking cans open. So
Hmm.
it had changed at that point, and I was getting through a ridiculous amount of cans as well. And I listened to one of your earlier podcasts, and you chatted to someone about the kind of madness of the situation where you go and buy something that's the intended amount for the day, and
Yeah.
then I would do that. I'd go and buy a 4 pack of cider or lager, generally cider. Thatcher's cider used to be my tipple,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a stronger one. It's closer to 5% now. So I go and buy a
Yeah.
4 pack of that with the intention of just drinking that. And this happened hundreds and hundreds of times. I go home, drink those, go, I go for another four, so I go another, but I have to go to another shop at that point.
Yeah.
They caught
Yeah.
on to the fact that I was a pisshead. And okay, so I go and buy another four, and this would go on. And some days, I drink 20 cans,
Yeah.
and then to the point where I was going out on night missions to drop cans into other people's bins and stuff because my black bin was completely rammed full of cans. There was no room
Yeah.
for anything else in there. I was driving down to bottle banks to stash cans there and to get rid of cans there and put them in other people's recycling boxes. And
I mean,
just
I laugh, but it's
insanity.
just it's insanity, absolutely insanity. I mean, at least with me, like, I mean, I was just purely spirits at the end, and it
Mm.
was, because I was hiding them as well, so it was a lot easier than that amount of cans. But I remember before I came over here and we were still in lockdown, I think it must have been about June, July, and I'd been in the rehab, but I'd relapsed at this point, and
Yeah,
I remember, I think I've got a photo of it somewhere, unless I've deleted it, but my blue recyclable wheelie bin was full to the brim of wine bottles, gin bottles, vodka bottles. There might have been a few cans in there as well, but it was mostly just glass bottles. And I had to wheel this down to the road, and the weight of it was just, yeah. And I was laughing to myself because I was pissed. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, I'll take a picture of that. I was just gone. I was just gone. It was sad. Insanity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. So where are we now? You're back in Bristol.
Yeah, so it's a couple of years ago now. So yeah,
Kind of disappeared for 2 years, and you're just drinking the cans and cans. And this is you saying you were drinking kind of daily at this point.
pretty much, yeah. And then still, weekends I'd be catching up and going back into Bristol and catching up with people. And Coke was on the rise there, so it's most weekends was on the Coke as well.
Yeah.
And I would take that. And I've been quite fortunate with, I would say fortunate, anything like the crack, the Coke, any of these drugs which I kind of have taken. I've done heroin a few times as well. It was always just the booze that led me there. I've never ever contemplated even doing any of, well, Coke was probably a slightly different one. I've done Coke and I'd done that when I wasn't drunk, but the Coke.
I mean, I always thought of Coke. I don't know why, but it just seemed to be because it was such a quick buzz and then it's gone, and you just need more, and it's very moreish. It didn't seem to me to be that kind of dangerous, I guess, or addictive.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's one of the most addictive ones. But I was saying to someone else on, I think it was Kate Turner, and I was saying, I just feel grateful that I was never in a situation when I was drunk or high that someone did offer me crack or heroin, because I've no idea to know whether I would or have not, because I was pretty much, on self-destructive paths, and if someone would go, here, try a bit of this, I probably would have. So
Yeah.
Well,
that's kind of what I did. I was just seeking complete oblivion at that point. So anyone, and it was more like I hadn't gone out with the intention of finding it.
No.
It's just I was there, and kind of someone offered it up. I did. I was in that situation where I did do that. So. But the Coke became more and more prevalent, and it was just an enabler for me. It would enable me to drink more and more.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's why I like taking it. So yeah, it kind of went hand in hand towards the end, and then 2023 was just a particularly shitty year. That's when it all kind of started. I had a fairly messy breakup at the start of the year. Sorry. Then there was my stepfather got diagnosed with vascular dementia, so he went into a care home. It's just a catalogue of things happened. I had a massive fall down the stairs, which kind of put the shits on me a little bit. I smashed my head open on. I was drunk, obviously.
Yeah.
Wet stairs, and I cracked my head open. Got back inside. I thought pretty much immediately. Called an ambulance, but to give an indication of kind of probably how long I was out there. It was raining. It was like pissing down. The ambulance came about 2 hours to them to arrive. They were looking at my head and went, he needs to take you in the hospital. Went outside and there was still a huge pool of blood at the top of the stairs. Now, that wouldn't have been a huge pool of blood if I'd only been there for a minute.
Yeah. And they took 2 hours even when you've told them I've got a head injury.
Yeah.
I thought with triage and all that was like one of the first things that and this is the crazy thing, it's like,
well, they probably asked me on the phone whether I felt concussed, and I said no, but I was pissed at the time. So
yeah, and they probably heard that on the call as well. Like,
exactly.
This guy's pissed. He's bumped his head. Yeah, so you were all right. Your head was okay.
It was fine. Yeah, got a load of stitches in it. Pretty healthy, unhealthy scar on the back of my head. But so yeah. And it was just one thing after another. There was that, and my uncle passed away in the summer that year, and then I crashed my car drunk as well, and that was the final nail in the coffin. Really, that one. That was.
And did you lose your license for the police?
Yeah, pretty bad as well, because I failed to provide a specimen because I didn't want to at the time. I was high as well at the time, so I didn't give them a specimen, so they came down pretty hard on me.
Yeah.
I was lucky to I didn't get any community service or it was first offence. I got a 24-month ban.
24-month, right? Yeah.
And a massive fine, and it cost me an absolute fortune because I wrote my car off as well, which I had to pay for. So yeah.
And I guess, I mean, I know you say you work from home at certain things, but I guess that's kind of put you, in a bit of a predicament with work and stuff as well.
Very much so. Yeah. I was very lucky. They were very understanding. I was completely honest with them about everything at that point, because I'd already enrolled in a program to kind of deal with the drinking at that point. So,
What the company did, yeah.
The cup, no, I'd done
Oh,
separately.
you've done that, but you've told
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I've told them all about everything. I was 100% honest with them, and they were, yeah, bless them, they were really good about it. And they said, well, okay, you just need to make sure you can get where you need to go, and then we'll keep you employed. So I do, and I managed to make it work. It's
that's
actually
really
not,
good. I mean,
yeah,
I think if you'd done that 20, maybe even 10 years ago, companies were different then. I think people have got a lot more duty of care for people that are
mm,
going through certain issues. Before they would have just gone, ah, well, you know what, you're an alcoholic or whatever. You just, yeah,
yeah,
we're gonna get rid of you now. But
yeah,
I think it is really good that people's attitudes are changing, that it's not kind of like, just turn a blind eye on this guy. He's obviously got issues, but we're gonna work through it with him. So
yeah.
then when was that? That was the kind of turning point. What program did you kind of enroll with then?
I did the Annie Grace Naked Mind path
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
for a year. Yeah, signed up for that. Um, yeah, pretty much. Well, I'd already signed up for it. I think I was about 2 weeks in. I think when I crashed my car, I was quite delighted by the fact that I signed up for something, and they don't discourage you. They don't encourage you. But they don't discourage you. You're drinking in the early days,
Yeah. Well, it can be dangerous to just cold turkey it. I've had a couple of
Yeah,
symptoms in the past, so I guess it's like that Alan Carr, he tells you, I think, to keep smoking for the first couple of chapters of the
yeah,
book, you
yeah.
know.
It's the same kind of philosophy behind that. I think.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
took that as a flag to, yes, I've still got 1 month. I can get as pushed as I want.
Yeah, not kind of trying to stop it down a little bit, but just keep
Yeah.
going until the last day. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the mindful drinking it was supposed to be for me at that stage. It was just, yeah. But there was no, I couldn't do it. Literally as soon as one bit of alcohol touched my lips, it's just like rolling the dice as to what's going to happen next.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know,
All bets are off.
yeah. But yeah, and then followed on a year of what really worked for me was just doing work every day. Every day I had coursework to do.
Hmm.
There were coaches, several calls a week. You could jump on if you felt you needed that, but I needed that kind of daily work. I needed something that disciplined. That was the way I was going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's worked a treat. I feel like I have kind of they talk about going into it with the vision of what your emotional goals are.
Hmm.
And mine was just happiness and just have some self-esteem. Basically, that's kind of where I wanted to get to.
Hmm.
And to not even have alcohol as a thing in my life anymore. It's just something I don't think about, and I don't really now anymore. It's quite incredible, really.
It does happen. I mean, I think, even when I went into the detox place and all that, I think in the back of my mind, it was like, well, I'll give up for a bit. I'll make my family and everyone that's kind of watching happy, and I'll show them that I've not got an issue. But I think in the back of my mind, it was like, I'm going to drink again at some point. And
Yeah,
I think every time
yeah,
that I would kind of fall on my arse and then get to rock bottom again, and it was like, right, until the last time, and then it was like, no, something switched in my brain, and it was like, if I carry on this way, I'm gonna end up 6 feet under. Do you know what I mean? This is not.
mm,
I've done the jails, I've done the institutions, and the third one is death. So it was like, I
yeah.
don't quite fancy that option. So
Not
I
really,
need
no.
to do this. And I'm like you, it was like it had to be militant for me. And I know that doesn't work for a lot of people, but for me it was like I needed to do the meetings. I mean, I'd never set out to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I didn't even know that was a thing. For me, it was just because I wasn't working, and I thought I need to keep my days busy and keep my kind of mind occupied on recovery. Like I couldn't just sit and watch a film because then my mind would wander, but it had to be always about recovery for me. So I
Yeah,
ended up doing Zoom meetings and then in real life meetings and all of that. And then I got to 3 months and I was like, wow, do you know what? I'm not even really thinking about it. I'm not
yeah,
kind of hankering after it. And so I continued on like that. I didn't keep doing the meetings every day. I think I got down to about three a week.
yeah,
But it was enough for me for the first year. And then
yeah.
I thought I need to kind of really start focusing on my life now, you know.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, but that first year was definitely the first 3 months were the hardest, but the first year had to be fully, like you say, militant, it had to be
yeah,
structured. Um, yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I was very committed to it. I'm quite proud of myself for sticking with it. It was quite a major deal. But yeah, it's
And did you go? So you didn't do any meetings or anything at all in that, five.
No, I didn't. No, no, I did. No, it was strictly the coursework really.
Yeah,
There's a lot of kind of they phrase it differently, but there's a lot of CBT type work.
yeah,
There's a lot of
yeah,
they can't tout it as therapy at all because it's not. But you end up doing that therapy on yourself fundamentally.
yeah.
Working through your issues and kind of sort of just building yourself back up from scratch really, and just kind of getting to the point where you're recovering that person you kind of probably were
Hmm.
destined to be. The person you left behind.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, it's worked a treat for me. Um, but I was also conscious that when that finishes, I still need to have some sort of connection. I still need to have a bit of interface with a community. So
Hmm.
hence the reason. I think it was last year. I got a Glastonbury festival, and I just come back from there.
Hmm.
And after being indulged with so much creativity over the course of a few days, I was like, I need to do something creative. I've always felt a creative urge. I think that was one of
Yeah.
the other issues as well, a kind of frustration with myself of doing nothing with that. So I'd always messed around with bits of music and production stuff. I'd always kind of hit things and kind of played the drums to a certain extent, but never really got involved.
Well, I
Um,
suppose when you're in that industry, it does kind of help to be, creative when you're surrounded by creatives as well, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
So it's kind of it's probably inevitable. And I found with I do a bit of photography as well, and I guess with uh, like when I was drinking, I would take the odd picture here and there, and then I'd look at it the next day. I'd have posted it, and it was utter shit. Do you know what I mean? It stifles your creativity when you're just drinking all the time. You think you're probably be doing something amazing, but in
yeah.
actual fact, it's absolutely kind of nonsense. So tell us what your kind of creativity was there then, Ed, when you started.
It's really just manifested itself in kind of just writing some rhymes. Really, that's kind of where it all started. Isn't it? I thought I'd start an Instagram account and keep myself accountable. To
Yeah,
an extent, get into a bit of a sober community and just write some. I thought it's good. It's almost therapy for me. It's almost like journaling.
absolutely.
Writing a little something. And again, it's like being that disciplined. I'm trying to ensure I get something out. Well, I've done so far. I've got something out every day. So it kind
When
of keeps.
did you set up that? Because I think we started following each other, I think October last year. So did
Yeah,
you
it would have been last summer. Yeah, it was
last
last
summer?
August, I think it was. Yeah, just not long after Glastonbury, which is all end of June. So yeah, it would have been July time, something like
Yeah. And
that.
how do you find the kind of sober community on Instagram?
I mean, if I'm honest, I don't really engage too much.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just I'm there to kind of. I mean, I read through posts, but I don't spend a lot of time scrolling on Instagram at
No,
all.
no. And
Uh,
it can be really useful. I mean, I was surprised
yeah,
when I went on and started typing in like, hashtag sober or sobriety or recovery. And I
mm,
was like, where did all these people come from? What are they
yeah,
what are they
yeah.
doing here? Do you know what I mean? And it's this huge, I mean, I'm only tapping the kind of, smallest surface of it. There's so many more out there. And I think that's the thing. Social media can be really, really dark and dangerous, but I think if you're using it for the right purposes, then it can be a really useful tool and it can be
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
positive. I'm gonna read one of your poems that really struck me. I can't remember. I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago,
Okay.
and it just resonates with me so much. So
Yeah,
I hope I do it justice by reading it.
yeah. Go for it.
You promised me comfort, delivered me pain. You promised me freedom, but kept me in chains. You promised me courage, and then brought me fear. I promise we're over, just so you're clear. And I absolutely love that, man. I think it just
Yeah,
it encompasses everything that I kind of didn't know at the time, but felt afterwards, after kind of giving up booze and all of that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
I mean, there's a lot of emotion involved in recovery. There's a lot of reclaiming yourself, dealing with all the feelings. I think that's one of the hardest. That's the hardest aspect I've found about recovery. It's just dealing with what goes on in your head and having to feel the raw emotions now. Without
yeah,
numbing. And I was just oblivious to the fact that that's why I was numbing for 30 odd years. So you got all of that coming out, and that, in my mind, that needs to kind of be, if it's not written down in a journal form, it needs to be expressed somehow.
hmm. And I
And
think it is great by being able to, because some people don't have that kind of creativity to be able to get things out. Maybe they can journal, but
Yeah,
being able to do something like that. And for me, it's been doing my photography over the past 4 or 5 years.
yeah, yeah.
It's really been amazing. Um, and so, have you got a poem that you'd like to share with us today?
I have one I could share. Yeah, in a second. I tend to just write them, but they come to me in weird places. I could be sitting on a bus or sitting on the toilet or something, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's
an opening line will come up, and I'll just kind of expand on that. Some will come really quickly, some take a while, but yeah.
yeah.
So I've got a wee bit of a longer one here, so I'll read
Cool.
it. There you go. Regrets hamper progress. Shame too keeps you stuck. There are days when the guilt feels a burden too much. You attempt the same attitude as when you were drinking, that don't give a shit about anything thinking. But you can't now, you're honest. You're accountable to you. So you sit with the feelings until they pass through. And some days that's enough, as it's new and it's tough. But you didn't pick up, so yourself you can trust. And the trust builds a confidence, a welcome return to the person forgotten for whom you did yearn. And before long, you're sharing some tales from the past in the hope it helps others on Jimmy's podcast.
I love that, man. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, it is obviously we've got the darkness from the drinking days, but then there's hope there as well.
I think that's quite important. I always try and inject a bit of hope in them. I've got some ones that don't make on Instagram that are pretty dark and they stay dark, but I try,
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of bring a bit of hope to the, to
Well,
recovery.
yeah, but I mean, you know what? We went through dark times, and that's
Yeah,
kind of, I think that we don't need necessarily have to put. I know what you're saying. You want to put hope on it, but it's good to see the kind of, and that's why. I'm 4.5 years, but I think getting someone like, did you say you're 500 days or just coming up for 500?
coming up for it'll be Sunday, be 500 days. Yeah,
Sunday. So, like having someone at such still early stages is really good for people to, people that are maybe sober curious or they're just right back at the beginning. I mean, I'm just so glad I had the kind of insight at the time or the foresight to set up an Instagram page on, I think that was day 13, and then I posted a picture every single day for,
yeah,
I think I stopped on my 500th day of doing it every day because it didn't become a chore, but it was like I was getting a bit like, you know what I mean? I've got to take a picture of myself today. Do you know what I mean? It was just a selfie every day for 500 days. It was
right,
probably
okay,
a little
yeah,
bit self-indulgent, but
yeah.
I noticed that I didn't get as many likes if I just posted a meme or an alcohol. So I was like, well, the people want my face, so I'll do that. But it was weird. The 500th day my sobriety date was 19th of August, 2020, and
Right.
500 days from that date happened to be New Year's Eve. What would it be? 2021 to 2022.
Oh,
So it's
well,
like,
yeah,
so it's 500 days. So if you were to go back to like
yeah.
say little Adrian when he was 14, 15, and you could say, right, you got two paths here. You can
Mm.
go that way without doing any of the drinking drugs, or you can still do your same path where you're going to get sober and clean and stick on that path. Which one would you choose if you had that chance? Change it all or be where you are now.
No, I don't think I would change it all. No, I think I don't know where this is going to lead me. I don't know where the kind of creative. But there's something I definitely want to explore, and I kind of feel like, yeah, I've got quite a few ideas about about a book I want to write. Basically, I've got
I
a few
think
ideas.
you've almost got enough on your page now to get a little published book out there, man.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like that's one of the goals with this. I'll do this for a year. If I can get a
Yeah.
rhyme out there every day for a year of this year of recovery, I'll get a book together of those. But I'm thinking about more of a novel. I think
Right.
that's kind of where I want to go. But I think a lot of the material for that is going to obviously come from recovery, and it's going to be centered around my experiences. Probably not in a self-indulgent way. It's not going to be not a biography in the slightest,
Mm.
but it will have some elements of recovery in it, I think. And in which case, if all of what's happened over the last 30 years is my route to a more creative path, then if none of that had happened, then I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be thinking like this. I guess I don't know. So would I change it? No, I don't think I would.
No, it's funny. I don't, and I think I've asked it in pretty much all of my episodes, but I don't know if I have everyone. But no one said no, I'd go back and change it and go the other path. No one said that yet. So I'm
No,
waiting to
no,
see if someone would. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be the person I am today without the lived experience and all of that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what are your thoughts on alcohol at this point? Do you think it's still got a place in society?
No, I don't really. It's I think as you see, millennials are kind of their attitude towards it is completely different, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think they're kind of turning against it. They just don't drink the same levels that our generations did. I think people are becoming far more aware of the harm it's doing now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues obviously with big alcohol pushing it all, and I think that's going to be ongoing. But I think people are getting wise to it. So yeah, I don't really feel like it is without a doubt. I think it's the most dangerous drug that's out there.
Yeah.
Not even touted as a drug. It's not even it's kept separate to that, isn't it? It's drink and drugs. It always has been
Yeah.
for a reason to make it kind of make it it's more socially acceptable, isn't it? So yeah, I don't think long term there's going to be a place for it. How long that's going to take, I don't know. But
I mean, I think the first step that the government, obviously, they still make a lot of money off of it and tax wise, but I think they need
of
to
course they
step
do,
in at some point and say, it's dangerous. It is dangerous. It's a poison. It's damaging people's health. Big alcohol, you cannot regulate yourselves anymore. You shouldn't be
yeah,
allowed to advertise. And I think that once that happens, we'll see a massive drop off in it. But obviously, there's then, a lot of these big sports events are still sponsored by alcohol companies, and if it's not pure booze, then it's. I mean, I don't know. Does Carling still sponsor the football, or is that stopped now? I'm not a big football fan myself, but
no, I'm not
even a
sure.
few years
No.
ago it was, and I know that they've then come in, and a lot of people are going, "Oh, it's so good that they're now showing, kind of advertising the alcohol zero and all that."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is good, but it's still an alcohol company, isn't it? I mean, I do use them from time to time, but
yeah,
it's still kind of, putting money in their pockets. And it's like they know that if someone's going to have a zero, yeah, they'll probably have a full one at some point as well. So it's,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm pretty anti them now. I think in the early days,
yeah,
I was found myself drinking the AF beers like they were like I drink normal beers. I go on nights out. I'm
yeah,
still trying to socialise and still trying to keep that part of my life still going. And I go out and drink, 15, 16 AF beers,
yeah.
And yeah, it was just ridiculous, And then realised, I think it was just that habitual thing at that point. You think you still think you're drinking at that point. But
Well, I
you,
suppose it's like a bit of a security blanket for
it
like
is, yeah,
anxiety that you're feeling or whatever. And I
yeah, yeah,
I was doing it for a while, and then because I didn't really socialize a lot in the first couple of years, but since I met my partner, where we do go out quite a bit to parties and things like that. And she's not a big drinker, but
mm,
like, there'll be drinks at house parties and things like that. So I'd be clutching these kind of Guinness Zeros and stuff, and then I just thought, I think one night I had about 6 or 7, and I was like, what, why have I drank that many? I
yeah,
don't, they're not doing anything for me.
yeah,
Because for me, it was just to get to oblivion when I was drinking. So
yeah,
I've
same, yeah,
stopped having them, and I'll have a soft drink or two, but I don't
yeah,
need to be hydrated that much, when I'm out.
yeah,
So
yeah. No,
kind
I'll
of,
tell you what I did do recently was I had there's a couple of breweries in Bristol who do like a 0.5%. Yeah, I'm not completely anti-alcohol in so much as I don't not if there's a bit of some food, for example, I'll
yeah,
most of it's burnt off,
exactly.
I'll have that. Probably steer away from liqueur chocolates and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
had probably about 4 or 5 of these pints of supposed alcohol-free, but it's like 0.5% or something. I could feel it the next day. I woke up in the
yeah,
morning. I could feel like just not quite right, a little bit, a wee bit groggy, not hungover, but you can feel like someone's a bit up with me, and
yeah.
I think that's
I'm
how
I'm
sensitive we are to it now.
So they call them zeros, but it is 0.5. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the same. I think that night when I'd had 7 and I woke up and I was like, oh, there's something there. And it's like
yeah,
that that poison that's in it has obviously had an effect on me. So I think it was then I was like, if I'm gonna have them, it's gonna be 1 or 2 and that's it. Because
yeah, yeah,
I don't really want to be letting that back into my system.
no,
But it's
no,
funny that whole thing that, alcohol can kind of help with anxiety. I suppose when I was younger, I was maybe a bit shy. and I'd go out and it gives you that confidence and it might help you with, anxiety in a situation. But the fact that then if you're doing that to drink to kind of combat the anxiety,
Yeah.
then it makes you more anxious because you're using it as a kind of crutch, and it really kind of is
Yeah.
becoming again a bit of a vicious circle out there.
Yeah.
Because people will say, like, oh, like, if you're not drinking at a party or anything like that, and they're like, well, why are you not having a drink? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, well, I'm sober, I'm in recovery. But then I have other people saying, well, how do you? I can't think about going out and being on a night out without having a drink, and that's like the majority of people, they can't. But if you try and take that away from them, it's like, well, what do I do when I go out and socialize? And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
go out
Yeah.
and socialize without it. Just try it, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just becoming too, not in an alcoholic way dependent on it, but in a kind of social anxiety dependency on it, because they know that if they've got that drink in their hand,
Mm.
they can rule the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be the
Yeah.
funniest person at the party.
Yeah.
And it was
You know.
we were on a podcast the other day, and they were saying that studies have shown that, like, first drink, second drink, everything's okay, everyone's catching up, they're having a laugh and a few jokes and all that. But by the third drink,
Mm.
more often than not, that's when it all starts going downhill. People start repeating themselves, the
Yeah.
volume levels go up,
Yeah.
and and that to me is that's kind of 10, 11 o'clock, and I'm done because I can drive home. So I'm kind of like, right,
Yeah.
I'm off out of here,
Yeah.
and
It
I'm fine with
becomes.
that. Nobody really notices whether I've gone or not. But I've done my bit, and I've had a
Yeah.
nice time, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
becomes very noticeable, doesn't it? And,
yeah,
if you're out with people, like you say, that sort of 3, 4 drink kind of stage,
yeah.
everyone getting louder, everyone shouting at each other, and it's just, yeah, that's about my limit as well. I can probably stomach about 2, 3 hours max now in the pub with
Yeah.
people before I just start getting bored, and just like you say, make your excuses, or sometimes just slope off.
Just do the Irish goodbye, and then you're
Yeah.
done. I
Yeah.
remember. I mean, I think I'm getting more. Um, I want to start using the Irish goodbye all the time now, because, like, Jen and I, we were at a friend's 50th last year, and we stayed quite late. I think it was about 12, and I was like, right, right, come on, And she was like, oh, well, okay, yeah, because she wasn't really drinking that much that night either.
Mm.
And I think it took us another half hour to get out of there, because we were going round everyone and saying goodbye. And they were, oh, you're leaving and all that. And then they would start a call. And honestly, by the time we got round, like, our kind of core friends, it was like they were all about to leave on their minibus that they'd got anyway. So it was like,
Yeah.
next time we're just going to slip out the back door.
Yeah.
We'll speak to them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's my preferred exit route these days. I must admit, it's yeah,
Oh,
just
absolutely.
subtly slope off.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you kind of want to say to the listeners, advice wise, if anyone's like kind of sober curious or thinking, that things are getting a bit much for them and they want to give it up?
Yeah, I mean, well, give it a chance. I'd say I've previously, when I've ever tried, I'd only ever really try for 2, 3 weeks and kind of think everything was okay. I think if you're going to be serious about it, give yourself a good chance at it, give yourself a good stab, give yourself, a month minimum, see how things are progressing, and inject some exercise into your life would be my number one piece of advice. I'm training for a half marathon currently. I've got that in a couple of weeks coming up, so and
Nice.
that's been a godsend for me. Is the running, it's been a
Yeah.
huge part of my recovery. Really, it's so yeah, I can't recommend that enough. And trying to run when you're hungover is not much fun. So I think that, and also it'll potentially bring opportunities to explore your creativity more as well. I think that's another thing, which is a fantastic thing. It's worth a bit of sobriety for, to give that an opportunity and see what's actually in there. So yeah.
Yeah.
And for those in the early days, I would say stick with it, because it's a lot of the feelings that are pretty damn hard to deal with early on. Everyone tells you things do get better, and they really do. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, it takes hard work, but things do get so much better when you're released from the clutches of alcohol.
Absolutely. So where do you see yourself going in the next kind of couple of months and year ahead, I suppose?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, like, I probably want to get a wee book together of some of these rhymes, a select few, get that
Oh yeah,
published.
yeah.
I'd have thought that's something I want to do. I want to start. Well, I've already started an idea about a novel I want to write, and I'm drumming a lot now as well. I've got a decent electronic drum kit. My brother's a musician who I live with as well. I live with another musician. So yeah, there's a lot of potentials for some music going on. So,
and you're in the right place. Bristol's, I'm not going to say it's up and coming. It's always been a kind of music hub, and it's quite a young.
Yeah,
I've not been there for about 10, 15 years now, but yeah, I'd like to get back to Bristol and have a visit because it's a great little town. Is
it's
it
a
a city?
fantastic place.
A city?
Yeah,
It's a
it's a
city.
city. Yeah, yeah. And it's one of the main reasons I've stayed here. I think it's just for the cultural side of it. There's tons of music going on. I fell massively into that kind of drum and bass scene back in the kind of late '90s, early 2000s. So I loved all of that. And that's what cemented my stay here, if you like. I've kind of been here
Yeah,
on and off pretty much ever since. I call it home now.
Great nights out in Bristol back in the day. So
yeah,
that was very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I'll put all your details in the show notes. And
no worries.
if there's anything else you wanna kind of put along there. Thank you for doing that poem, man. Are you gonna pop that on the Instagram, or shall we wait until the episode comes out, or because I'll try and get this out. Go on, sorry, say again.
Yeah, I'll wait until you to get the episode out, and I can link it in there, can't I, as well?
Yeah. I think we should do that. It'll either be, I think it'll probably be this Monday because I've got a couple, but I want to get yours out quite soon. So I'll probably do this one for Monday morning, and then we can chat over the weekend and get it organized. But yeah,
nice one. All right,
cool.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks very much, Ed. Appreciate it. Chat to you soon, man. And it's nearly the weekend, so have a good weekend, pal. Yeah.
You too. Cheers, Jimmy.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Yeah, that was Ed. Thank you so much to Ed to coming on, being a guest on the show, and thank you so much for doing that poem. That was amazing. I wasn't expecting, a kind of freshly penned one for us. So thank you so much for that. It's a tough listen, and it brought back a lot of kind of memories from me as well, even down to things like staying with your brother after breakups and things like that. But the hiding of it, well, not the hiding, but the kind of trying to discard the bottles and cans was very reminiscent, and it's just that shame that I guess we felt, not wanting to put it in our own bins, or our own bins were too full, or go into a different shop because you'd already purchased that morning, and you didn't want to kind of come across as looking like an alcoholic or someone with a drink problem. So yeah, it is tough, and also just those times when I was very lucky and blessed, I guess, that certain harder drugs weren't put in front of me on occasions, because I really don't know what I would have done. I'd like to think that I would have been stronger, but I'm sure Aid, he didn't set out and plan on taking things like crack and heroin. So, I'm just happy that he's come through the other side and is able to, now use his creativity for good. So, good luck to him in the coming year with his poetry and writing that novel as well. So thanks for listening, guys. As always, follow, share, hit the 5-star review button and leave a comment. If you're going to do that on Instagram, then why not do it on the podcast platform? But till next time, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Thanks, guys. Bye.